A new push is underway to get hazard pay approved under second stimulus package. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hope your afternoon is wonderful. This is Afternoons with LA Late, and this video is about hazard pay, part of our second stimulus package block in the afternoons to start with a check, hazard pay, FPUC, and rent assistance. Big developments minutes ago about really where is hazard pay heading to. And this is what's very, very confusing and complicated, but I'm here to make it very simple with you. A lot of people lost faith on Monday when they saw the Republicans introduce their second stimulus package, and hazard pay was not in there. They thought their hopes had been dashed. New indications suggest today two things. One, a lot of Republicans don't support the HEALS Act, and apparently the president doesn't support it as well, or is actually contradicting it. Minutes ago, the president came out and talked to news reporters before he got on a plane to head to Texas, and during that discussion, he was asked about the stimulus package, and he said he's doing a lot more than Democrats, especially as to rent eviction moratoriums. He says his second stimulus package will do a lot more to protect Americans for evictions than the Democrats will do. There's only one problem with that comment. He has no eviction moratorium in his own bill. Now, what's very strange about those remarks is it is not just the president who is seemingly not able to keep up to date on his own bill. Steve Mnuchin and Larry Kudlow can't as well. On Sunday, they said the second stimulus package was to include rent assistance and rent eviction moratoriums, but when they debuted the bill on Monday, it was not in there. So what's going on? Apparently, there's a second twist. Many Republicans are not happy with this HEALS bill, or HEALS Act. They apparently want to kick the HEALS Act to the curb. They apparently think that this HEALS Act will ultimately cause the end of their financial career come fall elections, because they think that their constituents are not going to like it. It is not take care of the constituents, they're working Americans in their counties or states, and they think that if they get behind this bill, they could be in trouble come the fall election. It seems almost logical when we're talking about hazard pay. Hazard pay is $10,000 that would go to essential workers who worked during the pandemic. Every elected official has essential workers in their jurisdiction. Those essential workers include people who work the front line, as we often call it, nurses, pharmacists, shippers. Then there's the more obvious professions: Uber and Lyft drivers, taxi drivers, truck drivers. They're in every jurisdiction of every elected official across this country. These are people who really risked their lives when the pandemic started in March and are still risking their lives. And ultimately, when those people go into the fall elections, the fall voting booth, and remember that their elected official did not give them hazard pay, they're going to remember. So apparently a lot of Republicans and Democrats today are saying, hey, you absolutely have to have hazard pay. And Republicans are scared about it. Apparently they're very scared that if hazard pay is not included, it could be a lot of calamity for their party and for their own political future. What makes a third factor really even more fascinating is that you have the HEROES Act, the HEALS Act, the Hatfields, and the Hamburger Bill. I mean, there is literally other bills out there. What am I talking about? Yes, apparently a lot of Democrats and Republicans are saying, I got it. You got two mega bills. You got to combine them with my bill as well. And minutes ago, another Republican introduced another bill. Yeah, it's just, you're going to have a dictionary or, dummies, that dummies index, dummies to second stimulus check packages. It's just, we're on 2, we're heading to 5. It's, it's only Wednesday afternoon. We have a few more hours. We have 20 more bills. The newest one came from Mitt Romney, who, of course, as you know, Mitt Romney has a hazard pay bill, which I've detailed extensively on this channel, and he wants his hazard pay bill combined with everything else. Well, guess what? Mitt loves to write, so he's written yet another bill he wants to have combined, and this is called the Trust Act. You know, it stands for something else. The T and the R and the U and the S and the T, it's like a bad Fergie music video. Anyway, the Trust Act would protect Social Security benefits, and he wants that included in his second stimulus package. What's going on is that these Republicans and Democrats, whether it's hazard pay, like Mitt Romney's incredibly well-written, well-thought-out bill, or it's rent eviction moratorium that has there's five rent eviction moratorium bills out there, on top of everything that is in the HEROES Act and the HEALS Act, or not in the HEALS Act. Apparently everyone wants all these things combined. So when you're sitting back and say, darn those people, they didn't include the hazard pay, it's not going to happen. Or some viewers have said, you know, the Republicans don't even want to give us $1,200 as a dependent check. They're not going to give us $10,000 hazard pay. Not necessarily true. It appears that the people who wrote, or person that wrote this the HEALS Act, did not think through a lot of things, and a lot of Republicans are not on board. As you recall, on Sunday I told you that Steve Mnuchin appeared on the Capitol Hill with Mike Meadows, or maybe it was Saturday morning, and spoke to leading Republicans and said he had full support. Not true. A lot of spin apparently now happening. Republicans are not fully behind the HEALS Act, and there's now indications that there's more support behind the HEROES Act than the HEALS, even among Republicans. Apparently more Republicans are slanting towards Nancy Pelosi's approach to how to deal with the pandemic than the HEALS Act. What's at issue? What's at issue is a very clear message, especially when we talk about hazard pay. The message is that the HEALS Act, to anyone who has a simple brain cell, will realize that the HEALS Act is really a bailout of corporate America. When you look at it, everything is about corporations and nothing about it is for working employees. It talks about extension of PPP benefits, which is like the third time we're doing PPP, which is really one of the most inept systems out there that just gives a big check to the business owner who can claim himself as an employee. He can get the check, he can shut the doors, he does not have to keep the doors open, and they're doing it as the shark himself, Kevin O'Leary, said, it's a plan that gives money to zombie dead businesses. That's the first thing. Second, $3 billion for a federal building. Again, why is the military getting money in a COVID-19 relief? Third, money to restaurants. There's a proposal to have 100% tax deduction to anyone who spends money at restaurants through the end of the year. Again, another bailout for big business. Fourth, Mitch McConnell. Here we go. He has a provision on there about liability insurance, which is totally contradictory to hazard pay. His liability insurance provision provides that you cannot sue an employer for anything COVID-19 related unless the actions were intentional, which is basically the employer coughing on you. Now, some may say liability insurance to some regards is helpful, but to say I'm giving liability insurance so the employee can sue the employer, but I'm also not providing the employee hazard pay, the message is very clear. And it's that type of message that a lot of Republicans don't want to be on board with coming into the fall elections. Ultimately, if you worked in Walmart, Target, Sam's, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, all those, big box retail stores that have groceries in them, that have pharmacies in them, you are potentially essential workers. And there's so many millions and millions of those workers in every jurisdiction of this country, and especially in Republican counties and states. And so if you're going into the fall election as a Republican and you're saying, hey, you worked as an essential worker, you worked the front lines, you were a pharmacist, you were a doctor, you were an Uber Lyft driver, you were a shipper, you did distribution, but, thank you and God bless and vote for me. It's not going to work. and apparently it's not working. So what should you be thinking about at the moment? What you should be thinking about is really the calculation. The calculation is very simple, and if passed, this money could be coming to you very, very quickly and very, very soon, and I want you to be up to date. It's sort of like EIDL or PUA. When these things were starting to launch, I told people, get ready and understand how the calculation is done, because when it hits, I want you to get that money right away. First, you would not apply for hazard pay yourself unless the Romney bill passes, which says that the employer will do it, is required by law to do it. The proposal for the Democrats is that the employer does not have to do it, but the employer does it for you. Next, the calculation is very simple. Number of hours you worked since the start of the pandemic through the present, hourly, part-time, furloughed hours, half any type of hours you had. Take those number of hours, times it by $13 an hour. Get a number. That number, you look at the number. Is it more than $10,000? Well, if you made up to $100,000 last year, you would get a lump sum of $10,000, bam, right in your account. Very simple and great, great, great news. If you made over $100,000 last year, then you get only $5,000. Next, if you're in one of those thresholds but you're not over the number yet, let's say you're at $2,000, don't worry, you get that lump sum, and then going forward, you would get $13 an hour into the future. Romney differs a little bit. His calculation is less. His amount of money is not $10,000, it's less. I think it's like $5,000, $6,000. But he puts a mandatory requirement on employers to do this for you. Ultimately, these funds will be coming from the federal government to the employer and from the employer to you. But what you need to know is that whether or not you're essential, which is defined in the bill, how many hours you worked, and will your employer apply for you? As I've said, you need to start that discussion. Some unions have started the discussion. Whether it's the grocery unions who are having a real big problem with Kroger and the supermarkets right now about even paying hazard pay there. A lot of them are saying people need to be paid hazard pay, ensure they're paid. Ultimately, what I want you to leave with today's video is a lot of things are going to change over the next couple of days. Hazard pay is not dead and done. It's still on the table. Coming up later today, FPUC and rent assistance in the continuation of Afternoons on LA. Tomorrow morning is Mornings on LA, which was a big blockbuster this morning. Thanks for tuning in. And tonight is Primetime LA. As always, stay motivated, stay informed, stay educated, and stay with LA for more.